This is people that have shown up there that are sort of doing some of these social media videos. There's plenty of people at home that have their theories that haven't shown up there. How does that impact this case? And when you're working a case, how does that impact you?
In the FBI, you tried to keep your head down and not listen. It would be the equivalent of anything you do on the internet here. You would turn off all comments. You know, the FBI doesn't want to hear what's going on out here. And by out here, I mean outside the crime scene in the office, because they don't want to be influenced by what the public might think. The FBI has so much more information than the public has. I mean, that little bit of video they released, I'm convinced they have a lot more of that. But the world has changed. These you know, for lack of a better term, the armchair detectives have become a force. I think it started in the early 2000s, probably during the Amanda Knox case that I was involved with, and it's a worldwide phenomenon. I had people all over in Italy and Germany and England just lambasting me because I said she wasn't guilty. And so what is good in some ways can become a mob. And that's the problem we're having. People are naming names and coming up with accusations. And the only thing you miss in this internet thing is they can't actually have torches and pitchforks.
They basically have virtual torches and pitchforks.
Exactly.
And oftentimes they're naming people that have nothing to do with it, and then their reputation potentially is impacted forever because of that.
There are people who have been so hurt by this, and I don't mean their feelings are hurt, but their careers, their lives have been displaced because of some irresponsible, you know, I don't begrudge people wanting to see justice done.
Right.
But you don't have the information they have.
And there's a lot of the old school way of doing things, of checking sources, of being held responsible, potentially being liable, can be boring sometimes, but it also, there's a reason why we do it that way.
Exactly.
Steve, great to see you.
Good
Thank
to see
you.
you again.
Hopefully one night soon you'll be here when we find Nancy Guthrie.
Days into the search for Nancy Guthrie, and law enforcement is zeroing in on the unknown DNA found at her home, but they've uncovered a potential challenge.
Sometimes DNA is mixed. We have DNA from that scene that is a mixture of DNAs. So we have to separate, hope the lab can do that, and still preserve some of that evidence in case the defense wants to test it. Should we make an arrest?
I'm so glad to have our next guest with us because he's a DNA expert, also the former director of the Idaho Innocence Project. Greg Hampikian has extensive experience in complex forensic investigations and was instrumental in overturning Amanda Knox's conviction for the 2007 murder of Meredith Kercher in Italy. Greg, welcome. I'm glad to have your mind with us because I need you to explain for my audience, what is mixed DNA and how do you extract the information that investigators need without jeopardizing the evidence?
So mixed DNA is just what it sounds like. It means more than one contributor. So if there's one contributor to the DNA, you run it on your machines and you get peaks that represent the DNA profile. I can teach a 10-year-old how to match a single contributor DNA profile of reference to evidence. When there's a mixture, it's hard to tell which peaks belong to which person. It's not impossible. There are a lot of great new computer programs that help us go through the data, but it complicates things quite a bit. And there is a certain number of people, each lab decides, where they'll just throw up their hands and say, we can't do this. We can't do more than 4 contributors, a lot of labs will say. But there are other labs that say they can go up to 10 contributors. So it does complicate things.
I mean, the next step is normally to look at investigative genealogy if someone were to throw their hands up or to have inconclusive results. But you have cautioned that that can take a lot of time, but also has some other hurdles to overcome, right?
Yes, yeah. So they finished the first part, which is the forensic DNA, and that still has several things that they can do. So it's not just a search of the convicted criminals that are in the FBI's database, but you can also look for relatives who are convicted criminals, and also unsolved forensic samples. So if the person who left the DNA, say on the glove, was also leaving DNA at crime scenes that were not solved, that will also be a hit. Now, the genetic genealogy, that's a very different kind of test. With the forensic test, we look at 23 locations on the DNA. The genealogists look at hundreds of thousands. It's in a sense more complicated, but you know, your aunts and uncles have been doing it for 15 years on family trees. It gives us a good set of leads to a family tree. The problems that you hinted at, for example, in 2012, we taught a local police department here in Idaho how to get a last name using the Y chromosome from some semen left on a victim. And they found a lead to a family tree to the last name of the men who might have left this semen. But the first person they detained to get a sample from didn't match exactly. So the important thing is with genetic genealogy, you get a family tree. If you have two brothers about the same age, you got to do a lot of investigation, or uncles, you know, if you have cousins who might be involved.
Does ethnicity have an impact on the ability to find the information as well?
Sorry?
Does ethnicity impact the conclusions?
Yes. So ethnicity is really important. First of all, you get ethnicity information from those genealogical tests, but it turns out Caucasians have participated a lot in these genealogy databases. So if you have a sample left by a Caucasian, you have about a 75 to 85% chance of getting a reasonable family tree. With other ethnicities, they've participated less in these in these genealogical databases, and so they're just harder to draw a family tree. But with Caucasians in the United States, it's pretty easy. You don't have to contribute. Don't worry, your relatives have. They'll draw the family tree. The reason it takes so long is once the DNA is done, you turn it over to genealogists. These are people who work with paper records, with birth certificates. We had one case where we got the last name. Turns out the child was not given the last name of the father. Yeah, so you have adoptions, you have questioned paternity, and so it's a complicated thing to finish the genealogy, but it's really a paperwork,
indeed,
a records study. It can take a month. It can take longer than that.
My goodness, the complexity involved. So important to have your expertise. Greg Hampikian, thank you for joining. Up next, 40,000 tips and counting as the sheriff's team tracks down leads in the hope of getting the one that breaks it all open. My profiler is standing by to explain why all it takes is just one. And later, Google did it once with the camera outside. Can they do it again with the cameras inside? We'll walk you through the precarious effort to recover the video that everyone hopes is still there.
Fresh reason to ask a central question, the search for Nancy Guthrie. Is this or is this not a kidnapping for ransom? Tonight, to that point, TMZ says it has obtained another purported ransom email. This one, they say, involves a cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin. But the dollar amount is similar to the $6 million demanded in the first email TMZ received days after Ms. Guthrie vanished. There's no indication whether the ransom notes are connected or even authentic. They say this new email includes a crypto account number different from the original and reports that it, quote, graphically describes the consequences if the ransom isn't paid. Also tonight, we are learning that the search for leads is multinational. A law enforcement official telling CNN that authorities on both sides of the nearby U.S.-Mexico border have been briefed to look out for anything that might help in the effort. Also today, the Pima County Sheriff's Office upped its Crime Stoppers reward in the case by $100,000 to $102,500, thanks to the donation last night from an attorney in Milwaukee. The FBI is already offering $100,000 as well. Meantime, with the search now about to enter day 19, the tribute outside the Guthrie home is growing, along with yellow flowers and yellow ribbons, a new sign, which reads, "Let Nancy come home," and quotes daughter Savannah